So we have with us today two women on the student affairs side of the aisle, of the educational aisle, who are very practiced in mentoring students to take on leadership roles, both inside and outside of the classroom. Bronwen Pelaez currently serves as the Associate Director of FIU's Women's Center. While overseeing the daily operations of the department, she provides female and male students at FIU with leadership development and educational programming that's related to women's intellectual, professional, and personal development. Scarlett Aldana-Bosch serves as the Assistant Director of the Panther Communities in the Office of Student Affairs in the Herbert Wertheim College of Medicine. It's a long title, but you do a lot. Ms. Aldana-Bosch supervises operations of all 4 Panther student learning communities and several student organizations, including the American Medical Women's Association, Latino Medical Student Association, and other specialty interest groups. And we can say that the presentation that they're making today has been tested and has worked. It's especially addressing using peer mentors and peer leaders in very large classes, which applies to many of our courses.
Thank you. Apologies for the delay. How y'all doing? Great. Okay, so we have already been introduced, but what we're going to share with you today is a technique that we utilized as part of our annual Women Who Lead conference. And this is put together by a university-wide group of faculty, student affairs administrators, deans, and all sorts of folks from across the university who really want to bring a connection for our female and male students with both campus and community leaders from a variety of different functional areas, career paths, leadership positions, so that our students really get a feel and actually visually see women leaders who have made a variety of choices throughout their lives. So this year, we really wanted to have an interactive piece as one of the main parts of our event, but generally our event attracts about, hey, I thought that was my slide for a second. Perfect. So we really wanted to have something interactive. In the past, we've had a series of panel discussions or keynote speakers, activities like that, networking pieces that are interactive for the event, but never an actual educational module. So our idea was to create something that had a sort of a case study feel, something self-reflective at some point in the session, something interactive, but something that could also be delivered on a large scale. So if we have about 200 to 250 participants, how can we deliver our message in an interactive fashion in a short period of time with a group that we are only seeing one time, right? So what we decided to do was create our 75-minute session that incorporated a video, a self-reflection, and a very, very brief case study that focused on not only leadership styles, but kind of roughed up the soil for questions that might allude to gender and leadership styles, and kind of see what students were thinking about that. The handout that is provided in the folder has our 75-minute schedule that we actually use during the conference. And then on the other side of it is our training of our student leaders who were planted at each of the tables to help us facilitate the discussion on a large scale. So we kind of took the same idea. We created our 75-minute session first, and then expanded that to create the training that Scarlett's going to share a little bit more about in a while. So we still wanted to keep in line with our event goals. So our facilitator for this session in particular is one of our deans in the College of Medicine, Dr. Aneta Roldan. She's the former CEO of Jackson Health System, very accomplished leader, very knowledgeable in a lot of different areas of leadership, organizational development. And so it was important for us to still retain that connection for students, to see that aspect of a woman leader and the choices that she made, but also giving them an opportunity to work with some of the concepts that were a part of the session. So you see on the one side, you have the learning outcomes for the conference overall, and then you have the 75-minute session, which includes a video. It's a panel discussion on leadership styles. 4 different women share their perspective on leadership styles, and a self-assessment, which I would be happy to share with you, or share more details about that and put them on the website for after the conference. And then finally the case study, which, as I mentioned, was very brief. This was not something that we shared with people ahead of time. I know often that's a big part of a case study discussion, is for people to have spent time thinking about it ahead of time. We purposefully chose a case study that was very, very brief so that we could use it for anyone who showed up that day, any class. We had a number of professors, 7 professors, use this session in particular as their class meeting for that day. So we had a variety of participants, not only those who signed up, but we had community members attending the conference, professors bringing their class. So we really wanted this to be very, very broad so that it could apply to a lot of different groups, but then each table could kind of be their own group that day and maybe go a little bit further with the discussion to make it helpful for them. Okay, so Scarlett's going to share a little bit more about the actual nuts and bolts of how we trained our peer facilitators, because we knew from the beginning that as amazing as Dr. Roldan is, those of you who know her, she's just outstanding. It would be really important for us to have others available throughout the entire session to kind of bring out some of those deeper reflections and the deeper meaning in the session, especially because it was so broad. So you want to talk about that?
Sure. Thank you. Before I get started in regards to the training of the ambassadors, I think it's important to highlight the subcommittee that oversaw the case study and the development of that training, which I thought was something that was very influential to the development of how everything was carried out. As Bronwen had discussed, not only was Dr. Roldan the keynote speaker for that piece, for the case study, but we also had different disciplinaries that were present and were reflected. So we thought that that brought a diverse and also global perspective as to how we wanted to dissect the case study and how we wanted the training to develop. Stephanie was one of the subcommittee chairs, and the information she brought was just valuable because she had all these different tools and resources available. We also had public health along with the College of Medicine represented. So we thought that that was also a very important and critical part of how everything developed. For the purpose of the ambassador training, which is the day before the conference, which you have the agenda in front of you, we did want to make sure that before we showed them the video and before we went into the case study, that we first just gave them a self-assessment, guided, of course, by the principle of leadership. So we wanted them to be aware of where they were at that point in regards to what they thought about leadership, what they interpreted it to be, and how they themselves implemented this, whether it was in a professional, in their academic, or personal lives. After that self-assessment, which was a couple of questions, 1 through 10, everybody kind of had like a scale in regards to how, where they felt, whether it was directive, whether it was collaborative, whether it was more of a team or collaborative. So again, while they're watching this video, they already took the self-assessment. Now they're highlighting what they've learned about themselves through this video, because we wanted to make sure that before we showed them the video, they had identified with themselves already their leadership styles. The video served as a purpose to be able to open up the discussion in regards to how one leadership style in a particular case or circumstance will not necessarily be an applicable or the right way to manage other circumstances or scenarios that you might come across. So that right off the bat, the video ended, and you could tell that the ambassadors felt a little bit more comfortable. We asked a couple of questions. We wanted to make sure that the subcommittee was very involved and familiar with the content of both the case study, the video, and the assessment, because we wanted to drive that discussion. Because the day of the conference, the ambassadors were going to play our role. The 4 of us could not facilitate this entire interaction for 200 plus participants, but with the help of the 30 ambassadors, we were able to accomplish that. I did want to highlight that we did have the Socratic Circle, and we used that method as a tool to be able to dissect and really focus on the discussions, because we did have some questions that before and after the video, we did ask the students, and this was our focus point. We wanted them to be familiar of what they were comfortable with, but we also wanted them to know in case there was something that you needed to step aside, maybe your way of managing things on an everyday basis, this particular scenario or circumstance expected something different from you, that you were comfortable in seeing it from a different point of view. So the Socratic Circle, some of you may or may not be familiar with it, but we had a small group inside, and then the rest of the students kind of were just observing outside of that circle. And a lot of the discussions and a lot of the points that were highlighted, you could tell that little by little they were kind of feeling more comfortable with the topic. And when it was time to dissect the case study, which Bronwen mentioned was very short, but very precise in regards to the points that we wanted to highlight part of the conference, the ambassadors already initially took a leadership role in discussing it, because what we wanted is that the day of the conference, any questions that may arose, or if they needed to be that proctor to initiate a conversation, that they felt confident enough to take that step. The day of the conference, you'd be surprised, we finished on time. We went through both the video, the self-assessment, and the case study, and we even had opportunity at the end for some of the tables to choose a representative and kind of just highlight some of the key topics that were discussed, and how everybody kind of managed to dissect the case study, but from a different point of view. Of course, nothing was right or wrong, but we did want to highlight the importance of working together, being able to be confident about what you're teaching and disseminating to others, but also to focus on the vision and the overall goal of the conference for that day. I don't think I missed anything that you want to highlight from the actual training.
Yeah, the only thing that you made me remember is that the training of the ambassadors was so thorough between the different pieces and the Socratic circles and the discussion, and then they got a chance to hear Dr. Roldan's story. So they felt so prepared. Actually, on the day of the event, we only had one ambassador who approached me right before the session started, and she said, I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. But everybody else, and it was fine. We had plenty of people around to give her that extra support. Excuse me, all the other ambassadors felt really equipped to facilitate that discussion, bring certain things out, be listening for certain ideas to come up at their table, and our committee was around to provide that little extra support for them. It was a really exciting new element for us, and we were really happy to be able to provide an opportunity for a number of professors who felt like they wanted to utilize the event as a part of their curriculum in some way. So I feel like it was a really great partnership for us in a lot of ways. I'll show a picture because I'm very visual, so I love pictures. So that's just a picture of the day of the event. You can see, kind of similar setup to this with the different small discussions going on, and then we came back together at the end.
So this is, we asked these ladies to make this presentation because this is a terrific example of how faculty and student affairs professionals can collaborate, especially in the large courses that you have, to discuss and explore the themes in your courses, whether they be issues of diversity. We have several offices in student affairs with expertise in diversity. Whether they be issues of leadership, women's issues, you name it. Looking at the student affairs division, there's a great deal of academic content expertise, as well as the human resources and pedagogical expertise to help you accomplish your goals in large classes that you may not be able to do alone. So this is a very, very powerful point of contact and collaboration. And I hope we planted a seed and the possibility of reaching out to student affairs professionals, because the division is fully on board and fully aware of the global learning outcomes and ready to collaborate.
Absolutely.
Thank you so
Any
much.
questions? burning questions can be later then. Thank you.
Thank you.